Testing, testing. Just welcome in everybody. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to get settled in real quick. Today's going to be another interesting stream for sure. If you guys, by the way, during any of this, if you have questions, whatever, throw them in the comments. I'll be able to bring them up on screen here, and then we can address them afterwards or during if it's important enough. But yeah, thank you everyone for being here. We're all just hanging out kind of midday on the fourth weekend here. It's I'm in Dallas and it's a little bit overcast still. It looked like I think it just rained this morning. Crazy thing happened at the hotel here. The fire alarm went off at like 6 a.m. and everyone had to go outside into the parking lot just for like 30 minutes until they could shut it off. And it was like, damn. And because I went to bed at probably like 1 in the morning, like I'd barely gotten any sleep, and at that point I was like, should I just go back to bed? Should I stay up? So I took like another quick nap, and then I got up like an hour later and got some work done. Got ready for this live stream, got some breakfast in. So yeah, I'm excited to be here again with you guys. Nothing else I'd rather be doing on my Saturday, and I kind of mean that too. There's a lot of every time I do these streams, I feel a little bit more connected to you guys. I feel like we are working on something bigger than just ourselves, and that's always meaningful. But yeah, so thanks everyone. Hope your fourth went well too. But with that said, I want to get into the real point of today. July 4th feels like glory. Fireworks, the parades, the promise of independence, I guess. But have you ever watched the sunrise on July 5th and asked, am I really free? Tonight's celebration of freedom is one day. In reality, most of us are still shackled by debts, habits, and anxieties this morning after. What is true freedom? And why does it often seem like it's an illusion? Are our minds truly independent, or have we traded one set of chains for another? These questions aren't really abstract to me. They lie in the heart of a very quiet crisis. On the surface, modern men have unprecedented liberty, yet beneath that veneer, mental, emotional, financial slavery are more common than we would probably ever admit. So today, I'd like to explore how social media, consumer culture, emotional avoidance conspire altogether to keep us powerless, even when we think that we're free. Because to me, that's an important distinction to make. And along the way, I'll share some shocking facts from recent studies that feel like kind of a reality flip and ultimately a path to reclaiming control. Because I can't just talk about the problems. I want to empower you guys to do something about it. For those hungry for action, basically, rather than despair, I can point out where like-minded men have already gathered, right? And provide some routes for you. So just stay tuned with this. Let's get to it, though. The illusion of independence is here. Think about that Independence Day sunrise yesterday, right? Many of you woke up July 5th, which is today, with a thumping head, but more critically, a nagging emptiness. It's like you celebrated yesterday, but you didn't know why. The rocket's red glare faded, and suddenly you're back in the same bed, the same routines, maybe on the same couches and office chairs as before. In fact, I met someone last night at my hotel that had to work this morning, and he said, it's so fleeting, these moments. And I agreed. So what changed, though, between yesterday and today? Well, technically nothing, except for the calendar date. We celebrated freedom with barbecue and fireworks, but did we actually become free? More often we awaken realizing nothing has really changed. It turns out that we're surrounded by invisible chains. Consider your own morning. Just a regular morning, right? Do you instinctively reach for your phone in the quiet hours after the midnight celebration? Many of us don't drift into freedom, we just drift into our screens until we fall asleep. The very symbols of freedom, the bright flags, the fireworks, the proud marches, coexist with the glow of smartphones. In fact, Americans spend an astonishing amount of time staring at our screens. I think it's on average about 7 hours and 3 minutes, if I remember the study correct. That was from a website. I think it was explodingtopics.com. 7 hours and 3 minutes is how long we stare at our phone each day. So if we're sleeping a third of the day and we're working a third of the day, that's basically saying the entire rest of the day we're staring at our phones. That's more than a quarter of each day. It's a third. As much time as we spend resting. Globally, people spend, I think it's 6 hours and 38 minutes daily on the internet connected screens. So even in the US, we're already beating the world. Yay, we're number one at smartphone addiction. In plain terms, we give up a full day of our lives every week to our phones. Almost 2 days, honestly. 1 week a year, 1 month every few years, and well, declaring how free we are. Watching fireworks through a phone screen, talking about how free you are. You know the fucking irony behind that? And it's not trivial content. Half of these phone pickups happen during work, and many were just micro doses of dopamine to pull you away. Meaningless scrolling or quick checks. We think we're in charge, but the apps know us better than we know ourselves. They seduce our attention. They line our pockets and they leave us subdued on some shitty dopamine hit. Rhetorically, just ask yourself, am I calling the shots or is my screen whispering orders in my ear? How much of yesterday, how much of the fireworks, of the cookouts, how much of that did you truly enjoy with other people instead of having that phone in your hand, having it in your pocket, thinking about who's texting you, wanting to go check social media? How much of it did you live free? Studies link heavy social media use to anxiety and depression. For men in particular, the effect can be pretty devastating from what I've read. As a 2018, I believe, psychological study found that social media use combined with pressures of toxic masculinity, the idea that men have to be stoic, right, dominant, unemotional, which I do believe is accurate. I do believe that's encouraged, but not in the way that most women tend to promote it on social media. It creates a depressive factor, and the more that men in particular try to hide behind their phone screens and suppress their vulnerability, the more we silently suffer inside. The silent crisis in men's lives is real. The statistics on men's well-being are both, I would say, sobering and shocking. The first, of our reality flip moments that I want to present today. In the United States, over 6 million men suffer from clinical depression each year. Yet men rarely reach out for help at the rate women do. Instead, they internalize pain until it becomes lethal. Consider this. Of the roughly 38,000 suicides in the US annually, 79% of them are men, 4 out of 5. This means men die by suicide 4 times more than women do. Nearly 4 out of 5 suicides are male. That's not a quirk of statistics. It's a catastrophe. Freedom in name, right? Of 4th of July, the fireworks, yes. But do our brothers who are still walking into mental traps that women on average avoid or survive at higher rates, is that strength? Or is it silently crying out for help? And this mental crisis ties directly to our habits of emotional avoidance. Society teaches many boys to, man up, grow a pair, and never show weakness. And sure, I stand for that in a lot of ways, but not in the way that's traditionally taught. The result is a very dreadful paradox out of that. Men are just often alone in their pain. Dr. Rory O'Connor, who's a leading suicide expert, emphasizes that isolation is a major risk. It's one of the biggest factors for mental illness, especially suicide. When we refuse to share struggles, when we hold this stuff in, we amplify them. LinkedIn did an analysis of men's mental health, and they put that suffering in silence only deepens feelings of loneliness and your despair. It only deepens your feelings. The good news is that connection helps. Studies show that men engaged in a strong community or a brotherhood have far lower rates of anxiety or depression. And they often make way more success out of their life than they would alone. But many of us have no such circle at all, really. Instead, we have social media followers, we have casual acquaintances who, when we're honest, don't really know us at all. This emotional vacuum contributes to the identity collapse I think many men are feeling nowadays. A 2023 New Yorker expose by, I wrote this down, Idris Kaloun, who was reviewing Richard Reeves's work, I remember, documented it starkly. The quote is that contemporary American men are mirrored in malaise. Boys fall behind girls academically from the start. Today, there are almost 2 female undergraduates for every male. It comes from the NewYorker.com. It used to be a 1-to-1 split. Obviously, that's the population makeup, 1-to-1. It's 50-50 pretty much. Young men are dropping out of education and the workforce. They're overdosing and they're drinking themselves to death in rising numbers. They're dying earlier than women are, from illness, from accidents, from suicide. That's also from the New Yorker. In short, multiple measures, schooling, health, lifespan, quality of life, men are falling behind. And yet that reality is seldom talked about openly. This is our second flip today. Despite the stereotype of men as providers and warriors, that used to be true, but men today are wounded and struggling. As much as I talk about what we should be, I have to talk about where we are. And this is where we are. The narrative of masculine privilege is incomplete. Men are not oppressive. They are not oppressing anybody, not in today's numbers. In the past decades, women have made tremendous strides, and rightly so, in education and career, sometimes even surpassing men, like we talked about. But alongside that progress, many men have lost a clear role for identity. Reeves's book of Boys and Men frames it this way, essentially, because I read this about 2 to 3 months ago. It says, the jobs that used to define male success, or brawn is what we call it, it's the term brawn, the quote, have dwindled, and men have lost a false sense of purpose, or what we call in behavioral studies, ontological security. So the result is confusion. If I can't provide or compete as before, then what the fuck am I as a man? Consumerism and new chains don't really add to this stuff. And I talked about this yesterday. We like to think of our debts and our jobs as our own choices, right? We chose to take this job. We chose to pick up this mortgage. But let's face the data here. The financial system is a maze that very few navigate with true liberty. The US economy alone is awash in red ink. As of late 2024, total consumer debt in America hit $17.5 trillion from Experian. That's what they measured. $17.5 trillion in late 2024, just consumer debt. That's up 2.4% in a year, barely slowing down from pandemic highs. Showing that Americans are more leveraged, the banks are winning even more, and we're being stuck in debt traps that we can't pay. Consider, that's 40 times our national debt when Independence Day was first celebrated, obviously adjusted for inflation. 40 times our national debt when Independence Day was celebrated. Per person, the average consumer now carries about $105,000 in debt. Mortgages, auto loans, credit cards. We've mortgaged away our future and chained ourselves to monthly payments. What does that sound like? When you've locked in your future to somebody else, you've committed a period of your life to somebody else to pay them back for something you have to do. You've indebted yourself to somebody. What does that sound like to you? Tell you it's not freedom, and it's often for things we don't even need. A single keystroke, the buy now button, it sounds free, right? It's your choice until it's followed by a credit statement months or years later. For many of us, a stack of credit cards is our real American flag, right? The badges of consumer freedom, as we're told. But the credit card industry spent billions to promote the idea that swiping plastic is freedom. How many times a day do you swipe plastic? Think about that. How much are you really partaking in the system? Do you even use cash anymore? Or are you leveraging future work? As much as I don't, necessarily agree with all Dave Ramsey's takes, he's got a point. It's not even about buying everything with cash and optimizing your credit card rewards and stuff. He's not even making his point for that. And a lot of people have Dave Ramsey understood. It's just misunderstood. It's just he's trying to show people that you don't need to be indebted or serving, right? Becoming a servant to somebody else because you've agreed to take payment later and now you owe them interest. If you have the money to pay off your credit card immediately, sure, fine, use it. But most of you don't. And so you're just giving your life away, essentially. You're promising future work in your life, time out of your life to pay off a debt to somebody who gave you money. Because you couldn't fucking wait to get something until you had the money and decide if you need it then. You're too dopamine infused. You're too anxious. You just need things right now and you can't wait. Bankrate reports that less than half of Americans have enough savings to cover 3 months of expenses. 3 months, that's it. If you lost your job today, 3 months, you're on the street, basically. In fact, about 67% of Americans, 2/3 of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And it's not even who you think. It's not like the broke, low class, right? Poverty class. It's everyone. Even the rich people have their houses financed, their cars financed, leveraged as hell, and they can't pay them off if they don't have a consistent income. And with the job market and the economy and layoffs being the way they are, I'm worried for a lot of you. And I don't even know you. This means the vast majority of us need the next paycheck to survive. We celebrate July 4th freedom on a stipend. So ask yourself, does 2/3 of people living hand to mouth feel like freedom to you? It doesn't to me. The data says we're more financially captive than any other generation. That's why every time July 4th passes, it feels a little bit more like a performance to me. $1 million mortgage can be taken for granted after signing, but its payments define your next 30 years. And sure, you can say, well, I'll just rent out this house. I'll just make some income off it. Most people aren't doing that. Sure, you could be the exception. You can take half of your house and rent it out and house hack it, right? And make the payments on it. But how many people are actually doing that? How many people have an Airbnb in their guest house that is paying off the house? It's a very, very small percentage of people. So sure, you can point out all the exceptions. You can say, this doesn't apply to me, but it applies to 99% of people watching this. 30 years of your life is defined when you just sign on the dotted line. As much as it feels like a big celebration, right? I got my house. I bought the new car, right? Let's celebrate. Well, you're celebrating trapping yourself. The average credit card has an interest rate, the average credit card, of 20% or more. Essentially a tax on living. And every day someone will promote instant loans, right? Buy now plans, high risk trading apps. We're told to invest or upgrade, but often just wind up deeper in the hole than we started. And so, what does freedom actually cost? Because I feel like we need to talk about this. Well, behind screens or credit, human connection and self knowledge often fall by the wayside. The things that have driven us forward in all of history. We numb out on TV, on apps, on endless side gigs. Emotional avoidance means we might binge entertainment or work instead of dealing with the real issues that matter in our lives, the relationships, the friendships, the connections that could drive us forward, that can make us actually happy. Social media is toxic to this, and it prevents us from taking risks. We prefer the safe approval of likes over the discomfort of true achievement and progression. We want distraction. We want distraction. Yet paradoxically, that distraction can make us feel even more powerless. So imagine waking back up this morning on July 5th. You could use this morning to train, this alternate version of you did, to read, to build a plan. Instead, many of us reflexingly grab our phones before we can even wake up, or drag ourselves to the same unfulfilling job. It might not have been today, but it might be Monday, going straight back to that job, not feeling like you're really free. The illusion of choice sedates you. It feels like freedom to scroll through thousands of shirtless strangers, selfie after work, until we wake up the next day, alone, more anxious, with a half-baked paycheck and no savings. Great. So this brings me to my third wow moment of this that I want to show and spread some light of truth on. Everything around us is optimized to keep our minds passive and our wallets open. Everything is keeping us in this system. Tech firms literally weaponize our attention. Financial institutions count on our inertia. Our culture even glorifies comfort seeking and cynicism, making radical change seem unthinkable. Why is Love Island the thing that's on social media? Why is promoting high body counts, sexual pleasure, and lust the thing that everyone wants to talk about on TikTok? You notice how those videos are getting pushed more and more? But it's your choice to watch it, right? Of course. But when it shows up on your feed 40 times when you don't choose to, is that freedom? Freedom doesn't come with a party horn. It demands disciplined awareness of paying fucking attention to your surroundings. And you aren't. So no wonder your life is shit. So now you're going to be thinking, right? Why is it so bleak? Why am I tearing down the dream of freedom? I don't want to. I'm military, guys. I fight for this. I'm not on the front lines. I'm not gonna, pretend like some people do that I'm in the trenches, right? But I've served, and I want freedom. That's why I care so much about this, because as it says in the Constitution, when you notice, I'm paraphrasing here, but those who notice the system is broken not only have the right but the responsibility to fix it. It was in National Treasure, right? Watch the movie again. Nick Cage reads that whole section of the Constitution. When you're oppressed, when the system seems broken, it's not just your right to fix it. It is your due responsibility. And that, my friend, is the true definition of patriotism. Because freedom without truth, without opening these things, is just whistling past prison walls. The hardest questions that I'm asking here can actually set you free. Not what you think, not the shitty e-commerce dropshipping course that this buddy's selling for 30 bucks. On July 5th, when the sky goes back to blue, hopefully whenever this gray cloud mess gets out of here, we'll have a choice. Keep living under subtle tyranny of social media and dopamine, or wake up. Some of these facts probably make you uncomfortable, but that's the point. I'm trying to. If you're feeling shocked, well, damn, you should be. Men's health, men's focus, men's finances are all in worse shape than we'd like to admit. Honestly, women's too, right? Everybody's. The market fucking sucks. But knowing why is power. Because then you don't fall into the traps that the same people who have the power use to get there. And you don't make your situation worse, right? It's like, well, how am I going to start running in the race until I untie this ball and chain that's attached to my ankle? Otherwise, I'm just trying to pull a weight and I'm trying so hard, struggling when I'm still chained to this rock, this boulder. I have to take the boulder off. I have to realize what's holding me back before I can start moving forward. But knowing is power, Socrates said. He also said an unexamined life is not worth living. An unexamined life is not worth living. You should constantly be questioning. True power lies in awareness. And here is the good news. None of this is eternal. We're not stuck forever. If we got into this situation, as my mother always said, we can get yourself damn out of it. History has shown countless times that once men unite around truth, they can overthrow great odds. Look at the American Revolution, an empire versus a couple dudes doing guerrilla warfare with bayonet rifles and taking down the redcoats. That is the story we all grow up on. The story that makes us feel united, the passion that makes us feel proud to be an American. We have a system doing the same thing, a system oppressing you with high interest, with debt, with loans that you don't understand, with credit scores determining your life, with indentured servitude coming from loans that you have to take because you can't afford anything otherwise. So what can we do? Do we just shrug and sink deeper into distraction? Do you say my life sucks? Well, maybe I can find it out. Maybe I'll just go watch porn, or I'll go get alcohol, I'll go do drugs. No. Because you know what? That's exactly what they want. And now, because you know this, right? Do you want them to keep winning? Why would you not think that the same people who put you in this situation would want you to just distract yourself from the facts instead of fixing it? Why would the people making money off of your stuckness, right? Your intrepidness, not like, why would they want you to get out? Why wouldn't they want you to give into these distractions? Why would these same people not be making partnerships with social media, with alcohol companies, with all these different attractions and marketing this message, marketing Love Island, marketing degeneracy on Netflix to get you to stay in the trap? And you're falling right into it, thinking that that's the best out for you, thinking that that makes sense. Well, of course it makes sense. It's marketed to you as the best thing to do when you feel like shit and the easiest. Your phone's in your hand. Netflix is an app you can download. Go do it. Go distract yourself. I haven't, and I won't. Me personally, I choose better. And instead, we build something new. That's the only way out of this. We cultivate habits of action over passivity. It's the only thing that gets you out. We need to hold each other accountable, especially as men, because otherwise you fall into depressive states and no one's there to call you out on it and challenge you to be better and challenge you to find purpose again. And we question everything that promises comfort. Is it truly good for us, to prevent us from falling back into distraction? So if you're asking, what's next? Where do I start? That, my friend, that question, where do I start, is always the beginning of freedom that everyone's asked inside of our syndicate. You've identified the problem in your life, and I congratulate you for that. The next step is seeking solutions, not just as yourself, because you won't find it. And if you do find it, it will take years of wandering, of questioning. And that time ain't cheap, my friend. You don't stay this age forever. So you need to do it together. You need to find people that have already bridged the gap. This isn't about attending another boring seminar. It's not about going to a TED Talk. It's about community and commitment. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. It's about taking action. Taking action is the only thing that got people out of oppressive states. It's what got the colonists out of oppressive rule. Taking action by dumping tea into the harbor. Taking action at the Boston Massacre. Taking action at Bunker Hill. Taking action, leading a movement of people. Especially a movement that felt scary, because you're taking a few of your buddies, the colonists, right, the founding fathers, and you're going up against an empire built to keep you oppressed. Social media, high interest loans, distractions, dopamine, corn, fast food, junk on your feed. It's an empire. And don't fucking think for a second that they're not working together. It's an empire. You need to find your people. That's the only way. One George Washington himself couldn't have taken down the entire Redcoat Army. He needed believers. He needed people to follow him. He needed other people that were leaders in the space that could inspire a movement. He needed Paul Revere to ride through the woods at night, letting people know that the British were coming, telling people to take up arms, telling people that this is the chance to fight. And I'm 250 years later, this next July 4th will be 250 years of our American empire. And are we going to let it slip? And are we going to let the people within it, are you going to fall victim to the same oppression? Because modern life is lonely by design. It's supposed to be, because they want you to stay stuck. They want you to take out more debt, find more cheap pleasure, spend your money on shit that doesn't matter. But we are human beings wired for connection. Research shows that men engaged in real communities, groups where they can be honest, where they can be active and purpose-driven, have dramatically better mental health. That was a study that LinkedIn did. In those spaces, in spaces of men, right? The Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the Revolution, right? The French Revolution, any revolution. Depression and anxiety drop. Life satisfaction rises. And that's why I started the digital syndicate. That's why I made any of this to begin with, because the alternative, right? Isolation, mindless browsing, probably what got you here in the first place before you decided to pay attention. Consumer numbing is madness. It's fucking madness. We charge $17 a month, which is the equivalent of 2.5 of the beers that my friend bought last night. And it's an investment for something I can never put a price on, which is your life back. Your life. You get one of these. Oh, wait, I'll just wait till the next life. Hang on. I'll just wait till I reincarnate as a butterfly or something, right? This is the only human life you get at this time in history that means as much as it does right now. This is your only opportunity. And if you are passing up on it, then you have to live with being lonely. You have to live with being isolated because you made the choice. I showed you the light, and now it's your choice whether to step back into the cave or to come out. And it's on you. You have to live with the pain of making the choice you did, because choosing nothing and bypassing this live stream is also a choice. When you go back to work on Monday, when you're sad, when you don't know what you're doing, when the same bills hit you, and you don't have traction, when you don't have a community of people, you're going to be like, damn, it just slipped by, didn't it? And maybe it'll come back. I can tell you the price of this community is only going to go up. But we created a space, and so why not use it? A space where men can learn leverage, how to make skill and knowledge and AI multiply your effort without you doing all the work, to build massive empires of wealth without having to do all the work, without having to hire people even. Rebuild your identity by defining your own values and goals, and figure out who the fuck you are, and reclaim your control over your mind in particular, which creates control over your time and control over your money, your location, right? All these things that create sovereignty. And that's what America was going for in 1776. We are not preachy, and we're not about victimhood. That's why I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for me. The second I feel bad for me or you, I lose respect. And I respect you more than I respect anyone else, because you're here listening to this, deciding to take action. We're about gritty, real self-improvement together. Some of you watching right now might be thinking, is this a sales pitch? Well, yes and no. It's certainly a pitch, right? But it's also a lifeboat. If what I've said resonates in any way, then Ascend is exactly the only community that lives up to this stuff and can promise it. Read the reviews. 27 5-star reviews. It's men getting up before sunrise to write, to work out, to learn skills, especially in an age where you're being discouraged to do all of that stuff. Not because we have to, but because we choose to be masters of our fate, captains of our soul, as the Invictus poem would say. For $17, it's cheaper than most streaming subscriptions, platforms, but gives real answers instead of junk food and Love Island for your brain. To be clear, you don't have to join anything. We even have a free community if that's what you want. But choose something. Discipline, a book, a real conversation instead of a feed. Your freedom depends on it. The easiest path leads deeper into the fog. The harder path, intentional growth, leads to genuine power. And it can literally start today, the July 5th, the day after freedom woke you up, the illusion of freedom. So let's paint out one more version of reality. Imagine this scenario, this other version of today. You wake up on July 5th, feeling the weight of the headache, maybe a little regret. Now, instead of reaching for the phone or the fridge, you take a breath. You realize nothing external has changed, but something internal can. Your choice. You can decide that today won't be yesterday's sequel. Today won't be yesterday's sequel. Freedom isn't a gift handed to you. Ask Thomas Jefferson or George Adams or John Adams or James Madison, John Hancock. Ask any of them, Ben Franklin. Ask any of them if freedom is handed to you. It's something you live moment by moment by the choices you make. And this is, my friend, certainly a choice. Ask yourself, if not now, then when? Not when the debt is paid off 30 years from now, right? Not when the new job starts, not when I have the time. Now, freedom is in action. Freedom is made through action. If your mind is restless, read a challenging book. If it's anxious, go run or meditate. If it's lonely, call or meet a real person. Yes, outside, in the real world. If you feel purposeless, volunteer or set a small goal. Each deliberate act will break a chain. And when the urge hits to complain or complain on social media, pause. You have better options. Think, what would Jordan Peterson or a Stoic philosopher do in this situation here? What's the real problem here? Challenge your assumptions. Socratic questioning is like that. Keep asking why until you hit the root, the truth. Why do I feel powerless? Because I'm not in control of X, Y, and Z. Why don't I change X, Y, and Z? Because of fear, inertia, comfort. Keep drilling. Eventually you land on what you can do. This approach is what gives men real freedom, self-mastery. It means choosing to shape your day instead of letting it shape you. The founders of every successful movement, from civil rights to personal development, awakened on ordinary mornings, just like July 5th, and thought of this. The steps forward are unconventional, but they're straightforward. First, you have to acknowledge the truth, no matter how ugly it is. The Declaration of Independence, right? We're tired of being oppressed. These truths are ugly, but we choose to accept them. We choose to accept that the way forward is going to be brutal. It's going to be violent. It's going to be transformative. But out of that came the United States. Something beautiful. We've done some of that today. Second, refuse comfort as an excuse. Comfort killed many dreams and many, many more men. Third, engage your community. We are not lone wolves. Wolves hunt in packs. Find a pack that pulls you upward. If what we discuss cuts deep, then you're not alone in feeling the hangover of empty freedom today. We built a community exactly for this purpose. Joining the digital syndicate, again, it starts at $17 a month, or just get in the free community, isn't about going on a diet of tough talk. It's not about Andrew Tate lectures, or it's about having allies who hold you to your worldview and to your word. It's a discussion of real issues, not just how to spin plates or buy another gadget or stock trade, right? And it's concrete steps like group challenges, accountability, shared learning, how to master AI, a tool that will literally create infinite wealth in this day and age. It's less content and more action, more conversation. We cover topics from financial strategy to emotional resilience to ancient virtue or self-discipline. Over time, members find that their motivation skyrockets, even on dull mornings. That's why I'm here today, why I'm doing live streams every day to show you I don't have to go. I get to be part of something. I get to be part of a movement, the revolution. That's meaningful. To put it plainly, the only rational escape from our collective malaise is collective action. You can mull this over alone and remain powerless, sure. Or you could invest in the company of serious men, serious people pushing themselves for $17 a month, literally the cost of a dinner out. You're overthinking this. Chipotle is more expensive. You gain access to the tools and the brotherhood needed to break these chains. Let's do one more reality check. If spending even an hour, let's say a week, with driven peers, right, with a community of people, lifts you out of the rut, even 1%, that's enough to change your trajectory. 1% a day, right? Good things compound fast. Leverage is one of our watchwords. Small, consistent gains will snowball, as Warren Buffett talks about, into huge differences. Imagine compounding an extra bit of discipline, knowledge, and community every week. If you did that for a year straight, you will be over a third better in your life. Over a third of your cumulative life's knowledge you'll have gained in a year for $17 a month, if you do the bare minimum. 1 year from now, you won't just feel a little freer. You will be freer, smarter, and stronger, measurably better from it. Just like going to the gym, guys. To all the men feeling the aftershock of July 5th today, remember, freedom is not a calendar date. It's still going on today like it did yesterday. It's a daily victory. Will you stay passive? Or will you wake up and carpe diem, seize the day? As Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It's the only way forward, through. Right now, boredom, screen zombies, and corporate ads are the obstacles. It's not redcoats. You have to identify this, right? It's the lack of discipline. In overcoming them, you forge your path. On the quiet moment, the question echoes, what will you do with your freedom? Burn another hour on Instagram or start building something real? Spend another $17 on mindless subscriptions to Tinder, or invest $17 in mastering yourself with the digital syndicate and attracting whoever you want at whenever you want in life, fixing the real core problem instead of distracting yourself from it. Who will you be? What will you do? Where will your money go? The answer to that question will decide your next July 5th. So with that said, choose wisely. The link's in my bio, and I appreciate all of you for being here today. I'll see you guys back tomorrow. I'll hopefully be in my normal studio again, and I'm rooting for you, as always.